Welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what really drives them forward. And today, I'm really delighted that we've got Steve Henry back with us. Steve's the Group CEO of Audience Collective. And firstly, Steve, if you'd like to introduce yourself and the Audience Collective and what you do and how you help people, that would be great.
Yeah, nice to see you again, Chris. Look, our Audience Collective is, as it says, a collective of specialist marketing agencies that really work with brands and clients to connect them to their audience. So everything from research to communications to media, PR, and everything in between technically to make sure that they can find their customers and then sell their products.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And I know, obviously, we spoke probably about a year ago. I'm not sure exactly when it was. And you were in quite an acquisitive and growth phase. And, you know, perhaps you'd be kind enough to give us an idea of sort of how that's progressed over time, where you were and where you are now.
Yeah, of course. As you say, probably about 60%, 70% of the deals were done when we spoke last year. So that was to acquire my old agency, Ponderosa, into the group, a business called Marvelous that was an e-commerce specialist. A research agency called Sparkle, based over in Dublin, that were really interested in breaking into the UK market, do very well in Ireland and in Europe, but have not really made it in the UK. The first acquisition was Crunch, who were a digital media specialist, and we did subsequent smaller acquisitions of Keelover and All Trousers, two good names there. As part of, I mean, really, they were skill players of bringing in expertise into that media business, and as that grows. And that gave us our basic structure. Since then, we've added what we first started looking for, which was public relations, PR, and then content from that end in terms of influencer and all of that side. So that was a business called Luca, who are based head office in Leeds, but also a big office and about half their team down in London. And this has their clients split. So that was a really good big play to bring that side into the market. And then more recently in 22, we have opened, late last year, we opened an office in LA, which is just a small hub with two guys, two ladies out there to start to break into that market. And we are now on the acquisition trail there to build fundamentally the same set of specialist businesses that we have in the UK. So we have two deals, can't say who they are, but two deals now, both past heads, done due diligence and at legal. So hopefully be announcing those in about 6 weeks, but they're great. Give us a nice footprint in California and in Texas, Austin, which is what I didn't know a year ago, the up and coming place in the States. So it's where Elon Musk is moving his business out to at the moment. I didn't know that's kind of exciting out there. We then added a business called Box Harry, based down in Brighton. They're really interesting, small business, but they do a lot of systems integration and a lot of making all of your bits of tech talk together and either improving, repairing, or joining up. And that's what we find with so many clients. They've got bits of here, an archaic system there, a new system here, a CRM system there, and none of them talk. So they become really inefficient. And what we're doing is facilitating them, hopefully, to make better marketing and business decisions, to hopefully spend more money with our group. So that was a really good one. Great team down there, and it gets me down to the south coast every once in a while. And then the final exciting thing this year is we opened an office in the Middle East, in Dubai. There's a big edge. Obviously, a lot of brands are out there now. It's the hubs that's being used to get into a lot of the Asian markets. And we also, there's a big university market, and we've set our own brand of Unicom, which is basically student recruitment expert within that sector. And a lot of the universities are now building campuses. So one of our clients is the University of Birmingham, and they have a campus, an actual part of their university in the Middle East. So you can go there, you don't have to come to Birmingham, which some may see as a benefit. You can go there and you can get a full University of Birmingham degree under their faculty of business out there. And that's happening more and more. So they're obviously wanting to recruit and drive students in there. So our expertise is landing very well.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been quite busy. I'm sure I've missed them now. I'm going to get told off by one of the agencies.
Now that's funny, because I often talk to people about the stages of growing a business when you can't remember everyone's name. but you really
Don't
got
start with people.
cover
Yeah,
every company. So just to give that scale, I mean, how many offices and how many people would you say you have? And I'm not expecting you to get it exactly right. So let's just.
I'm quite good on this. So we've fundamentally now got 11 offices across. We've got the 2 in Leeds. So we've got 11 offices across UK, Ireland, US, and Middle East, and then we'll have 2 new ones in the States, as I say, by middle of Q2. And then we've got about 220 people at the moment. That does fluctuate quite a lot at the moment with how the market is for acquiring talent, which is still slightly challenging across every area. So yeah, that's the size of us now. We are suddenly quite a beast. I suppose a lot of my time this year has been building out the central support to build the group, if that makes sense, rather than just being a collective. It really needs, we need to get those economies of scale of some of the key services to support the growth of the agencies.
Brilliant. I mean, that one of the things I love about doing these is just finding so many amazing businesses founded in Yorkshire that are just, you know, going gangbusters. And would it be okay? I mean, I'm really keen to maybe, especially with you, talk about, you know, the acquisition process.
Yeah.
Maybe just, you know, what are some, how did you find it, and what are some of the biggest, perhaps what the biggest challenges are, but what are some of the, you know, maybe fallacies that you overcome, or fears that you had that turned out to be not fears, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think really interesting one. It's something we are learning and evolving, and how we integrate the new businesses will be very different to how we did the others. The market's full a lot. Q1's been quite an interesting, not always a brilliant way. There's been a bit of a slowdown, bizarrely, not in business as usual, but in sign off of new proposals and things like that.
Yep.
Not in a negative way, but just everything being dragged out. And I think, you know, in hindsight, that's a combination of people actually going back in the office now. They're more sociable, so they're spending less time just jumping on a meeting and getting stuff signed off. Yep. But I think the Ukraine and the general energy costs in this country have just given people a bit of a wobble. But saying that, April and May have just gone bonkers again. So the work's there. It's just actually getting people to sign that through. But just to go back to your question regarding the acquisitions, how we buy them is quite different. Well, not quite different, but how we've chosen to do it is we keep, as a rule, the founder of that agency, that entrepreneurial founder within the business. We want to keep them for our journey. We've got, you know, a many faceted journey ahead of us in terms of there'll be an event in the next 3 years where we will then take us into, and hopefully bring some investment into to grow again, and that will involve us probably getting rid of some of our founders originally, but in the meantime we've got a job to do. And speaking as a founder, as in someone who's an entrepreneur and who set up businesses, suddenly having a boss is very different, but I can tolerate that as long as I'm learning. And I think we talked quite a bit about this last time when we spoke. My word, am I learning? You know, learning stuff that you didn't know you had to think about before. But I think what's interesting is ensuring, look, as a rule, entrepreneurs aren't the best managers of what becomes more of a corporate entity. And obviously we're not becoming corporate like a bank, but there are certain things we've got to do better, and certain things we want to keep the autonomy at the agency level, and certain things just make sense, like finance and people. We should just do that centrally. Then we can get the very best people that an agency on their own couldn't afford, and bring in the very best training and all of that. So there's obvious benefits, but that finding that balance it's been a challenge over the last year, and not taking the founders out of their businesses too much as well, because what's really interesting is they don't know what they know, and that sounds really weird thing to say. Some of their things that's very intuitive to them in terms of selling the agency, as in pitching and as in dealing with challenging clients and things like that. They've never written that down. They've just been naturally good at it as a rule. And what we're actually trying to do is to write that down now and get them to share their experience and coaching with the teams to say, these are the best ways that we would do, you know, in terms of managing clients. This is the best techniques we found for selling. And then we hopefully put a framework around that to allow us to sort of, not quite industrialize it, but certainly create a pipeline of opportunity that use, because I'll be very honest, what we used to do, Rich, Midge and I, we used to focus on new business, win a load of new business, and then fall back into the agency and get it delivered. And then we suddenly go, oh no, we've run out of bloody new business, back we go again. Now we're good at both ends, but what we should have been is, right, well, you stay doing that and I'll do that. And that's sort of what we're trying to find now. And it's been challenging because, again, an entrepreneur's, 20 years ago I went on my own. I've not had a boss for 20 years, and they're all the same. And it's about ensuring they can do the very best job, because we're a period of growth that, one of our investors talks through that, these 4 areas of growth of a group, of what we're doing, of this acquisition, this build. And we've done sort of stage 1, era 1, as we say, and that's sort of held together with excitement and goodwill, and everybody just goes, oh, the adrenaline's pumping, and you make it work, and you cover the cracks up that are naturally there, because you're suddenly bringing 8 different businesses and people and owners and types of business. And it's not as though we're all, it's a really good example of a success story in Harrogate of IDHL, who exited about a year ago, and it's a brilliant story, but they were much more in the digital vertical. So yes, they had nuances of their skills, but they were sort of the similar gang. We've got PR people, we've got social people, we've got devs, we've got systems integrators, and everything in between. And it's sometimes, it's a bit, they don't quite get each other. And part of it is to say, look, there's something to be learned always by this.
Yes.
That's what we've been wrestling with. And I think we've just this last month, we've just said, right, that's a nice balance. And actually it's been bringing these founders, as we call them, back into the business a little bit more, to do that coaching, to do that leadership, and realize that there's a phrase that we use, especially in Ponderosa, is that every once in a while, the client has to win. And what we mean by that is, if we go to a model that's really corporate, it would be every hour and every minute we spend on that client, a bit like a lawyer, we'd be charging, the clock will be ticking.
Yep.
The problem with that is it makes the relationship very transactional.
Yes.
And it also allows the client just to go, I don't think I'm getting value for money. And the relationship's gone. If we allow, and I don't mean that it sounds really calculated, but there'll be a small job to be doing, which is a bit of a favor. And as owners, we'd be like, just do it, just get it done.
Yep.
On the house type of thing. And the client will be really grateful, because it's normally something that needs doing last minute. And it's just finding that when they've got maybe the group CFO going, it's all about efficiency, it's all about return on time. They sometimes go to an automated response when we deal in relationships. We're selling our brains. We don't have widgets. We're not delivering a product in that spend. We're delivering a load of relationships and trust that we can then employ all of our different services across the group and try and cross-sell those through.
I think it's Paddy Dunn coined the phrase critical non-essentials, by which he meant that they're not essential to the transactional part of doing a business, but they're critical to the relationship, whether it's doing that extra bit for the client, or the social event, or something. Something Philip Hesketh taught me, who I didn't realize was connected with Richard originally till we spoke. But Philip taught me one of the things he talks about, the idea that he uses the idea, I saw this and thought of you. So sometimes it's just sending somebody something, saying, he does. I think he buys Which magazine, which often has lots of sort of industry information, and he'll if there's an article in there that's relevant to a client, he'll send it and say, you've probably seen this, but I just thought of you. And that building that personal emotional connection is ultimately as important as the transactional side for a long-term relationship. I
mean, if you think about it, like, my background was that account handling. That's all I did. I wasn't a developer, a writer, a creative. Yes, I had an eye and I understood what looked good and what would work, but my job, like you say, was to build a relationship so they trusted me to get a brief off them and for the team behind me to execute it. And that's what we do a lot of the time. Yeah. And if we go to transactional, I mean, one of the challenges has been that within COVID has made every meeting like we are now on Zoom, very much right. I've got an hour in my diary. We'll smash through it. There'll be no chat. There'll be none of this warming up, closing down. What are you doing? Going for a quick beer. But actually, that's coming back, and we've got guys who've never done that. They've been working for us for 2 years, and we actually go to a client. Now, what is amusing is that suddenly a meeting that would have taken 40 minutes is now taking twice as long, because we're back to it, and the client's quite excited that someone's rocked up from the agency and the reel, and you can see them. But that's great. Yes, all right, it might be a bit of a pain on the efficiency targets for a while, but that will reap benefits, because suddenly they're going, oh, great, these guys have made the effort. They've come out to see me. And it's not rocket science, but it does take an adjustment where you go, why are we doing a Zoom? They're only in Manchester or even in Leeds sometimes.
Totally get it. Just to do that extra little bit is really key. I'm interested. So, given that you're the founders are staying very active within the businesses as you grow to this next phase, is that part of the acquisition sort of criteria, that you select businesses where the owner isn't just? I think one of my clients used the phrase, what did he call it? Call in rich. He said, basically you the following day it's like, no, I can't be bothered. Do you have to sort of select the owner along with the business in that respect?
Very much so for the original core. Now it starts to differ now, because the acquisitions that we do in the UK will be to strengthen a service, to really deepen a service. We've got the core areas covered. So there may well be a time when there was a couple of deals we're talking about. We've got some meetings this week, and they're not very different, but there's nuances of change where they might be in for only so more of a classic earn-out option from that end, rather than that. Because what all of the guys have done is they've rolled their equity into the group, so they've doubled down on the deal, if that makes sense. And so that keeps the focus, because with the multiples of growth adding value just by size, then what they invested in on day one was already worth more than they got first time round. So there's a natural growth element just due to the size of the group now that they're now part of, and where their equity lies. The group owns every one of the businesses by 100%.
Brilliant.
So it's interesting, but there's still times, there's still where people just go, this is it's not quite what I signed up for, because it's we never thought we'd have COVID when we started half of these deals.
That is exciting. Yeah, no, that is exciting though, to recruit people that they're actively looking. The acquisition is a next step for them to progress, rather than the exit or anything.
Yeah,
I find that fascinating. So, if looking back on what you've done so far, is there any fears or fallacies that you thought this is going to be difficult, or that we must do it this way, that you found aren't true or are dispelled?
I think part of this is part of my learning. You've read about these sort of buy and builds, and you just sort of see a theory. There are other guys out there doing it differently. Jellyfish are a massive global digital agency, but I think they do about between 12 and 14 acquisitions a year, and they're just buying profit or turnover nearly. They're all the same. They rebrand them straight away as Jellyfish, and it's just a money play. And look, that's fine. So I think one of the things you worry about is, obviously, because we buy all the businesses, so we put debt into the business. But the way we structure the deals, and this is something I've found fascinating to learn, is that we're very, if there is such a thing, safely leveraged. A bank wouldn't even bat their eyelids at how much debt we have to the profit. It's very, very conservative. But that's helpful to the founders, because they've always run their own business, and they've always, they've come from a thing whereas if we didn't make money, it would mean we didn't get money as owners. The rest of the guys got paid. And so they are, bizarrely, I think quite a lot of founders, especially from agencies, are quite conservative in terms of that, and risk averse. I know it sounds weird setting up your own business, but they've normally done it with a network ready to go with them, and they were bought into that person. So it was very much loaded odds in a positive way against that. But it's like anything. What you don't want to do is to expose yourself in a world that you don't understand. And obviously a lot of us, I can speak for all of us, don't really understand or didn't really understand that finance world of how you borrow and how you, and then when you get to understand it, you sort of go, I wish I knew about this 15 years ago.
Yes.
Because it's really logical. It makes absolute sense. So I think the fact that the way we've done it, I suppose, yes, it did dispel myths that it's not that scary. That's the thing I suppose I get, but it's still weird. It's like, the bigger you are, the higher the multiple for the valuation.
Yes.
In life, it's normally the other way. If you make more money, I'll knock you down with but I'm not going to argue with those rules. If that's what they play to, then great.
Absolutely. I mean, it's great just by dint of being bigger. As you say, the multiples are higher, and that's I guess it's not a go figure scenario, but it is a little bit, isn't it? Because as you say, logical, it should be proportional to the size. Why would it be different, other than, I guess, the safety and security of the ultimate acquisition of of the value of the company? Is it's most likely to be safer and survive changes.
Exactly, because if a particular service or a particular sector bumps, we across those businesses, we can defend our position a little bit better than just being one agency and with one service line in one industry. Naturally, we tend to actually be quite a few. Most agencies have specialities across 4 or 5 different sectors, but you only need, like what COVID did in terms of holidays. If you were big in holidays and you were big in, say, going out in for eating, drinking, then it could pull the rug. And unfortunately, they were the businesses that did go, in terms of agencies that had a sweet spot in that leisure sector. But
absolutely,
if they were back now, it's booming, and it's just the world's weird. I think a challenge coming up is going to be managing overseas in the States with a time difference. It sounds silly, but it is. It's just, my day's already elongated because of it now, but you can cope with it now. But I think what we'll do is what we've learned in the UK is that we need to put those building blocks in centrally quicker than we have. But then we were evolving, and it's quite funny, isn't it, when I've spoken to people in the different agencies, because the agencies were acquired and AC had a nice website and it was a thing, and there was a person called Steve and my chairman Steve rocking up, they thought it was a reality that was potentially a lot bigger than it was. But it wasn't. There were 3 of us maybe a bit more. 18 months ago, there were 3 of us in the centre. Now there are now probably 12, 13 in terms of IT people and support from the finance side. So suddenly it's a thing, and that's good. And suddenly it's like, I don't have to do that anymore. James is an expert in that; he can pick that up now.
Brilliant.
So so that's, I don't know. You learn that because you suddenly go, that's how they saw it. Because it's funny, isn't it? As we all say that, if you've got a really good website, people think you're this amazing business, and you and I could set that up tomorrow and look like £5 million business, and there'll just be me and you sat in an office going, what do we do next?
Absolutely. That's changed massively, hasn't it, over time? You're mentioning, obviously, you a lot of the founders are coaching other people, and I'm interested to know from your perspective who, whether it's in business or sports. I know you're very active in sports, but who would be the best coach you've ever had, and what would make them so?
Oof. Good question. I suppose there are elements of, if you learn, I always think if you're learning, it's just interesting. It makes it worthwhile. You can put up with maybe some of the hassle that comes with your role at work, and I think that's one of the reasons why we decided to go for this play. We could have, you've spoken to Richard Mitchell, who's my business partner. We had an agency that did well, and we had a lovely lifestyle, but it was a bit like we either sort of maybe even retrench that and take it down to a nice boutique size with the best 30 employees. And I wouldn't ever take up golf, but take up golf, if that makes sense. Or it was like, well, I'm not even quite 50 yet. This was then. I am now. I'm not. And if I'm going to have a go, this could be interesting, because part of what we were was a little bit bored, because it was the same thing
Yep.
going around every year. You do your budgeting, you do your, and look, we're very lucky in the industry that we're in, that no 2 days are ever the same, which is what drives me a lot of this. But you sort of realized you were getting a bit stagnant, just dealing with the same, you know, oh, was that client problem again, or was that staff problem again? And you didn't have the drive, because you thought you were treading water somewhat. So I think in terms of coaching, you know, the chairman I have now has been very interesting in the fast track learning that I've had. His style isn't one that I'd have chosen, but I actually really enjoy it, because it's very challenging. And part of my role is to save him from himself, and realize that not everybody's like me, and when we have to bring some with us, and whereas others just need telling and they'll crack on, and then that's nice. In terms of other coaches, that's interesting. There was a guy I used to work with called Simon Malcolm, who was actually a client, and he was great. He taught me a lot about just how to be calm and just stop, if that makes sense. I was very much, right, come on, let's do. And he was very good at that, not to the point where you just gaze at your navel, but very much about, right, come on, Steve, let's think this through. What is a client actually? Because from a client's point of view, it was very interesting. He did quite a lot of consultancy with us on developing brands, especially internally, of how, if your brand stands for this, how does that impact the team? How do they behave? And we're getting involved with values and the culture. And he's a very clever guy. And he just gave me that lovely thing just to stop and go, okay, think about the implications of what you're doing and what you're saying, and what does that mean? And can that be lived? If it can't be lived, it can't be a value.
Yep.
So yeah. Can't think of else. Obviously, my wife, she's an amazing woman. She tells me every day what to do, and I do it.
Brilliant. No, it's great. It's just good to pick people. I mean, I've spoken to quite a few people about this, and just picking out different individuals and you know what they've actually said. And sometimes it's been just somebody said something at some point that really radically changed how somebody thought about something. So it's just, you know, I find it a fascinating questions. And forgive me if I asked this last time, but do you use any sort of quotes or sayings on a regular basis that you know that you sort of live by?
No, I try not to. Try not to live by a cliche. I suppose one always is just be nice. And if you've spoken to Midge, you'll take the piss and say, I'm the nice one. But I do believe that there's a lot of karma out there, and always try and do right. Be straight. You can't. Maybe in the past I've been too nice. I haven't dared confront certain things. But no, I just believe if you do, it'll come back round again.
I completely agree, and it doesn't cost anything. And you know, nice sometimes is confront. You know, nice.
Yeah.
It
can be disarming, can't it? It can be disarming where people are, oh God, I was going to shout then, I can't now.
Yeah, we use the acronym in actual NICE. NIC standing for nothing inside me cares enough. Because if I'm too nice, I'm not telling people what they need to hear to develop.
I agree. That's maybe something that's been, look, you need to give that feedback every once in a while.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're not helping them. You're just allowing you, maybe through silent approval,
yes,
saying their behaviour is okay, and it's not. And I agree.
But it's because we care. You know, I'm saying this because I care and have respect, and this is what we need to say. So, but yeah, but being nice in general, being polite, being friendly, being helpful is it doesn't cost anything, and that definitely comes back us. I totally agree.
Yeah.
So just a couple of things. I mean, firstly, looking forward, what when we speak in 12 months' time, if you'll be with your permission, what will it look like or be like then?
Well, hopefully the US is there and in place.
Yep.
That'll be rather exciting. I think by then we will have made some more central appointments within the group, in terms of certainly a commercial lead, and then probably a proper CEO, if that makes sense. As in somebody who will lead and drive the business into that next phase of growth that is beyond me, and it's not what I'm good at, if I'm honest. Great. Where we will see our roles evolve and grow. You know, a lot of what I'll do is the integration of the agencies as they come in, and making things like the cross-sell work, so how the agencies interact and how we actually optimize the fact that these clients are buying all these services anyway. How do we actually get them to buy them from us in a way? And it's interesting working with one of the other founders, Justin, over in Spark. And what he's driving now is to actually create products. So rather than say to somebody in the research business, go and sell, I don't know, social media, we actually create a product that uses something maybe of Spark's insight creation angle, and then with a product that bolts on with the social media. So you're comfortable. And that's really smart, because what we're doing is looking at what challenges the client's giving us and how can we solve them by already of coming up with partly formed answers. So it is getting everybody to be nice to each other and play nicely together.
Brilliant, absolutely. Play nice. Sorry, go on.
We've got a product that we're launching in hopefully July. It's looking like it's going to be ready in July, which again has come through Spark, and it's called Lifestars, and it's really quite cool. It's fundamentally an app-based instant research tool for brands. So there's a couple out there. Obviously, ours is going to be better, but no, it is about clients are wanting a lot of quicker feedback. So what we do is we build a big online panel and manage that panel that eventually will be a national representative, and you could come to me and say, I've got these 2 labels for this soup, which one's blue, one's red, which do you think is going to land, or right the way through to get an impact, what's your thought on the interest rate? So a brand might now want to go out and just announce the interest rates have gone up.
Yeah.
How do you feel? And we can go out and we can instantly and get that back.
Wow.
I also think it's a brilliant tool for agencies. So, we're pitching tomorrow for company X. We can do some proper research quickly, because obviously all agencies are last minute, but we can do some proper research, and then when we present our proposal, we can say, look, we asked 2,000 people what they thought about your brand or what they thought about your competitors, and give them some insights. And it's back to our point earlier. I challenge anybody not to feel special if someone's gone beyond what you've asked them and given you some insight that you thought, I didn't know that, that's brilliant, you've just done that. And we say, yeah, we've got this tool. So that's really exciting. Everybody's excited about that, because it helps literally everybody in the group, and should be a great way of getting certain brands that maybe don't understand or value research now as a way of dipping their toe in. So it's very much a self-serve model. You buy access, and then you go, right, I want 4 questions to 1,000 people, and it costs you X. It's a straight matrix.
Oh wow!
And you get it back. And then the added value you can bolt on is if you want their researchers then to properly translate that data. Is like an additional service. But most of the products that are out there are great, they're good technically, but they're being built by technical people. They've not been built by researchers. We've come the other way. We've looked at the group, we've got the researchers have said, look, this is what you need, and this is how you and I could ask a question and we'd probably get the answer we wanted, but they would look at it and go, no, you've biased, and that means that you've actually, there's no point doing the survey because you already decided what you want someone else to be. When that's not very good, really, apparently.
No.
So the idea is that you've got that, and you can then, we can aid. There's lots of sample questions and help and aids, so it's really cool.
Brilliant. And just reminded, so what's that called, and when will it be?
Lifestars. It's called Lifestars. It's July. It's planned for a soft launch in July. So we're starting to build out the panel now. So you're rewarded. So if you're on the panel, you might as well sign up, Chris, because we need all of us. There's different rewards. So however many questions and surveys you fill in, you get points, and the points are into Amazon vouchers and freebies and money off. And
brilliant.
They've done that bit. They've done really well. It's really relevant because some of them you've got to earn thousands of points, and you lose the will to live, and you just think, I'm never going to get there, so you don't do it. With this, within 10 questions, you've got something, even if it's a £5 Amazon voucher. So it's quite cool.
Brilliant. Oh, we'll keep an eye out for that. That sounds really exciting. And so thanks for that. So I say, if with the permission, we'll circle back into it. I'm really interested just to see this whole progression, and I have to say that the openness with which you can see the need to recruit a CEO to take it to the next level is wonderful, because it typically is the leaders of businesses like you and I, the whole business is back when, I know I did in my first business was my lack of knowledge and capability held my business back to a point where it was pulling me apart, because I was trying to be somebody that I couldn't be at that point.
I think that's it, isn't it? It's the honesty of knowing when you're not the right person to go.
Yeah.
And that's where you put your shareholder hat on rather than your I've got a job hat on. Well, it is, isn't it? Because they it's a bit like all these things, isn't it? They'll create greater value by getting their experience in doing this. They've got the track record. Because the thing changes and needs running in a different way.
No, absolutely, I couldn't agree more. So I'm slightly laughing because it was only last week I had one of my clients came in and I got him as shareholder to write a letter to him as MD about what he thought his performance was.
Hey, we'll encourage that here, please.
Absolutely. Well, funnily enough, one of my coaching colleagues did it years ago. I remember he did it. So he wrote a letter to himself, immediately sacked himself, and walked out the back door and came to the front door, knocked on the door. His wife answered and said, "I believe there's a position for an MD I'd like to
Excellent. Well, obviously, hopefully he secured a better package.
Let's hope so. No, fascinating. I'm really fascinated to see how they continue to develop. So just a couple of quick questions before we finish. What would you say to anyone thinking going into business right now, Steve?
I think there's loads of opportunity. I think it's a really interesting time. I think whenever there's challenges in the market, there's angles. I think actually fundamentally being smaller and more agile would be good at the moment. And it sounds weird, we can kind of get away with that because of the operational execution at each agency level. And with the centre being quite light at the moment, we've got a bit more flexibility to do that. Not like when we were just an agency on our own. But I think, look, everything's hard. And I don't mean that negatively. It's tough what we do, isn't it? Running businesses and things like that. And everybody has got challenges. You know, we're doing some really interesting trials across the group now on condensed working hours. So we've got 2 of the agencies testing a 9-day fortnight. So basically you have Friday off every other week. And we've got one that's just closing on the Friday and one that's dropping and doing making sure there's already somebody on the accounts each day. So, you know, I'll be off one Friday, you'll be off the next angle. And that's really, we've got to do that. You know, we can't afford any more hikes in salary. It's just, we've just had the increase in some of our areas has been ridiculous, you know, 30–40% to keep time. And there's a time when you can't throw more money after it because it's just not efficient. It just won't return. So we've got to look at different ways of doing it. You know, as a team, our gut feeling is that within 2 to 3 years, reduced working weeks will start to become, in progressive businesses, the norm. Better that we take a stride and get a competitive advantage for 2 years rather than suddenly have to come to the party begrudgingly to say, oh yeah, we're here too. And by then, all the good talent's buggered off to people who were forward thinking. Now, it's weird, you know, there's lots of questions because we are a service business. We get paid for the hours that we do. But I think the clients that we've spoken to are pretty positive because they get it. They've got the same challenges. And they also like the idea that we are hopefully looking after the people that they need to make their businesses better and they'll be in a better frame of mind. We can't just keep doing what we've been doing. No,
absolutely. I mean, the world has changed fundamentally in so many different ways that, you know, as Marshall Goldsmith's book, what got us here won't get us there, is just says it all in the title. And I mean, there's lots of great studies about that sort of condensation, I guess is the right word. You know, that it can be very effective. I think the Scandinavians have been doing something similar for quite a long time.
They seem to be the leaders in that. Probably because they've got really long evenings to do what they want, even if they do an extra couple of hours a day. Maybe not in Yorkshire in the winter.
I just come back from Iceland a couple of weeks ago, and of course they have the endless summer and endless winter, which is I love one. I'm not so sure about the other one. But,
you could keep swapping, couldn't you? Go down and find somewhere that's always summer.
Yeah, that would work. Endless summer. I think that's a film.
What is bizarre though, that everywhere in the world gets the same amount of sunlight every day, every year.
Yes. Yeah, it's just a different.
You go, really? And you go, just that we'd split differently because we're in the middle of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So just looking back, is there anything in business, anything you would have done differently looking backwards to now?
No, you know, so we talked about this not so long ago.
Yeah,
You make decisions at the time. Hindsight is brilliant, isn't it? But you haven't got that when you make a decision. And there are times when it's been challenging, both, you know, running Ponderosa and building that, and also within the group. But you just got to move forward.
yeah,
What you know now, you didn't know then. And
yeah.
I'm quite lucky. I don't dwell in the past, and some do, and I think it's, look, sometimes it's healthy to keep a balance, but also sometimes I think it's unhealthy because there's nothing you can do. You've made your bed now, so sleep in it. You've
Yeah.
made that choice and you've moved on.
Absolutely.
I mean, from the day of going on my own, I've never regretted that ever, because it's just
great.
you got a bit more control of your life.
And ultimately, if we like where we are, then that's the result of all the decisions we made and actions we've taken. Therefore, you know, changing one. I talked to somebody recently, that ripple effect. If you change one thing, we could be a totally different place. So if we pretty much like where we are, then it's probably best to keep it. So, well, Steve, thank you so much for talking to us. It's been really fascinating, especially around the areas of what you're working on at the moment, because I feel many people have growth through acquisition is logically probably the most sensible and effective way of rapid growth. But it holds such a I absolutely, but clearly, you know, it can work and does work, and you're making it work. So I really appreciate. Hopefully, this might give one or two people a little bit of inspiration to think about how they might go to the next level of growth. So thank you so much for your time today.
Pleasure. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks.